So, how did the shoulder dislocations begin?
First time I dislocated my shoulder, I was playing football, senior in high school. Very first game, dove for a pass and dislocated it. I didn't even know I had dislocated it at the time. It was just really painful, and I've dealt with shoulder pain, dislocations, fear, anxiety around the issue for, really ever since.
So this video is going to be based on everything that Trevor has done to solve his shoulder issues and dislocations. We're going to get to exercises, techniques, but first, we're going to hear some of the backstory. So, really big injury. Did you have surgery?
Yeah, so I tried to do some rehab and didn't really pan out as I had hoped. So I went and got surgery for a labrum repair and did the whole round of rehab after the surgery. And I was actually going to play college football. And the first time I stepped on the field to hit someone in pads, I dislocated my shoulder again.
So the surgery didn't work?
No, or maybe it did. I don't know. To be fair, who knows what happened? Maybe I didn't rehab as well as I should have. I was an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't paying too much attention. But regardless, I dislocated again, and then I kept dislocating after that.
For how many years?
For a lot of years. I mean, my first one when I was I was 18. And I think the last time I dislocated, I was 27, 28, somewhere around there. So about 10 years.
So how were those 10 years of having all these shoulder issues?
I started out, like I said, I was trying to play football, figured out I couldn't play football, tried to play basketball, couldn't really play that either. My shoulder would just dislocate, going up for a rebound or something. So I quit sports. And for a while, I just got depressed. I really didn't do a whole lot. I was lifting weights because that's kind of what I did from a young age, but nothing athletic. And then at some point, I realized maybe what the issue is, I just need to get strong. And so I started powerlifting, and that didn't help. I was still really prone to dislocations at that time. I remember just putting on a shirt and dislocating my shoulder one time. Even though I could bench press a lot of weight, right? It didn't really pan out the way I had hoped. And so at some point I realized that I need to do something different, or this was going to be something I'd be dealing with the rest of my life. I was realizing that I probably would never be able to play catch again, throw anything again in my entire life. So it was pretty serious, and I needed to do something about it.
So you tried getting a lot stronger, but essentially you just had more muscle on your body for those dislocations.
Yeah.
And then what was the turning point when you started to actually see some progress in making the shoulder better?
I think the biggest discovery I made was that just because you're physically strong at some of these more impressive feats of strength, like a bench press, doesn't necessarily mean you move well. And so I was really just noticing how my movement compared to people who I would look at and say move well, my movement looked very different. And it's hard to say whether I already moved poorly and that's why I got injured in the first place, or if all of that movement dysfunction came because of my injury, chicken or egg situation. But regardless, I was in the situation and I needed to do something about it.
It sounds like it really affected your mental health. You mentioned being a bit depressed. You didn't know if you'd be able to play catch ever again. So what was that like?
It was pretty defeating. I think in that point in my life, there was a real sense of helplessness. I didn't really see a clear path out of this problem, because every time I would look to an authority that I thought was going to help me get out of this situation, I would inevitably land back where I was, in a place that I was scared to move my body.
So over the years, I've watched you just take control of this situation and become kind of obsessed with the shoulders and like mechanics and quality movement. And what's really cool is that you've been able to share this and teach this, because your specific injury applies to you, but good mechanics apply to everyone. So anyone that's experiencing any type of shoulder pain, discomfort, poor mechanics can really just benefit from, we feel, are like these generalized concepts that will make you really healthy and stronger. So take me through what you found.
So for me personally, I found that most of my shoulder mechanics were pretty poor.
Yeah.
I had poor stability. I had poor recruitment, poor patterns, right? And so what really it was a lot of the rotator cuff muscles were very weak compared to the kind of bigger muscles I had put on top from all of the heavy lifting. And on top of that, poor scapular dysfunction, or not dysfunction, poor scapular function.
Yeah.
My shoulder blades. I mean, I remember watching Olympic lifters at the time. I got interested in Olympic weightlifting, and I would watch their shoulder blades move, and then I would put a camera behind me and watch my own shoulder blades move, and it was like a fraction of how much theirs could move. And so I didn't have the control, let alone the mobility to move my shoulders well. And then layer on top of that, years of bench pressing made my pecs really tight, made my lats really tight. I didn't have much general mobility. My spine was stiff because for years I hadn't put my arms over my head. I mean, I avoided it because I was scared of dislocating. So there's so much dysfunction that it was so hard to even figure out where to start. And so I had to do a lot of trial and error to just figure out what my endpoints were. And I think the most important part of the whole process for me was figuring out goals that would really force me to use my shoulder in ways that I was very uncomfortable with. So like handstands, bridges, even potentially acrobatics, more throwing, all these things that I was really scared to do. They could kind of be my litmus test to make sure that I was actually making progress. And of course, those turned into the practices that I really love.
Okay, so I want you to show me and the rest of Strength Side some of the exact exercises that you found to be the most effective for getting that shoulder to work better.
Throughout the many years of dealing with my shoulder problems, I've worked with a lot of physical therapists. And the commonality between all of them was I was gonna work on my rotator cuff regardless. And working on your rotator cuff is really important. So you're gonna do a lot of this with bands, with weights, right? And it's all really good, but it's not the end of the picture. You need to actually take that strength and do something with it. For me, what really helped was working on positionally using my external rotators or my rotator cuff. Just because you've worked on external rotation right here, you can't expect that to carry over to potentially doing like overhead presses or throwing a ball. So that's why I really like this drill. It's a drill I first saw on a Kelly Starrett video. Shout out, Kelly. You take a band, you stretch it across something that will give it a little bit of tension. You decide how much you want, and it allows you to work on rotation in any position. So I can grab onto the band, take a step out, get a little more tension. I can even work on some scap function, and then I rotate, and there's resistance towards rotation. I can do this in any position I'd like. Overhead squatting, throwing a baseball, right? So you can see how you can build your shoulder stability and mobility through one simple drill. So I'll show you what this looks like so you can actually see what's going on.
Got the mic.
Little dangler there, huh? All right, in the transition, just got some rain. I think I deserve a like button for that one. So we're always gonna start in the simplest position, and for most people, that's gonna be right in front. Right? Take this band, walk out into it, give a little bit of protraction, as you should if you're pushing into something, and then we just work into rotation and working through. You can hold at your end range and really squeeze. This would be really good for push-ups, make your push-ups better. And then we can start to move into positions that are a bit more advanced. Always make sure you're pushing your shoulder blade out into the band. If we're working on handstands, get into an overhead position. Again, shoulder blade. So you can see that you can work on any position and build it so that you can gain that stability that you need. One of the absolute best things I did for my shoulder was go through a lot of different types of hangs. I remember before I had started really working on my shoulder, I had done a Spartan race and there were monkey bars, and I dislocated my shoulder trying to do monkey bars, and it hit me. I was like, man, like this is something that like any shoulder should be able to do. You should be able to not only hang but also swing and like be able to pull from those positions. So there's a couple different ways that we can use hanging for shoulder health. Some of it is passive, where we're gonna work more on the mobility and potentially the passive stability of the shoulder. And then there's active hanging that's really about stability and muscle recruitment. So a passive hang is when we just kind of relax and let your shoulders rise up towards your ears and you sink in. And then an active hang is when you actively pull your shoulders down away from your ears, and that's like the beginning of a pull-up. Both are really good for shoulder health. You should be doing both. Most of the time doing them in the same set. You can go from passive, go as deep as you can, into active. And as you gain more strength in these, you can potentially start doing them on one arm. And this is where I really started to feel confident on my right, that my right shoulder was getting really healthy, was I was able to do, I'm gonna do it on a wet bar. I was able to do these passive and active hangs on my bad shoulder.
And a wet bar.
And a wet bar.
Throughout the years of working on my shoulder, I've explored countless variations of shoulder blade exercises, mobility exercises, patterning exercises, and I've already packaged a lot of my favorite ones inside of some videos on Strength Side, so they're in the description box, check them out.
But what I want to talk about right now is something that was really important for my journey, and I find is way more accessible and simple for most people, and that's natural or primal movements. And I want to give a lot of credit to GMB. I did their programs early on in my journey, and they really helped me move better and understand my body. So here are the 3 basic movement patterns that I think everyone should work on a really regular basis. So the basic cat crawl, which is this, we're gonna go into quadruped or 4 points of contact position, and think of this just as a moving plank. We're gonna push the shoulder blades apart, use our external rotation to really sink that in, pull the ribs in, and we're just gonna move. If moving is really challenging, just try picking up a limb at a time. But we're gonna move opposite arm and leg at the same time. And what I love about this is it teaches you how to stabilize your shoulders even when there's all kinds of different forces going through them, because it wants to do this, I want to do this, I want to twist, right? I have to resist all those forces to stay stable. Next is the bear walk, where we're going to take similar concept, 4 points of contact, but now we're going to throw our butt up in the air, and this is working more on that overhead position, where I get to really open the shoulder. Still want to use that rotation, but I can play with rotation there. It's usually pretty challenging for people, and added benefit, we get a lot of hamstring stretching here as well. And finally, have the crab walk. Probably played some crab soccer in your life, maybe. So hands behind you, push the shoulder blades down and squeeze them back as you lift your butt. Don't need to go excessively high here. We can kind of hang out in this position. And again, we can move, or we could just stay here and work through some stretching, all while getting a lot of control over the rib cage, the shoulder blades, and lots of mobility of the front of the shoulder and biceps, which I find most people could use some extra stretching for the front of their shoulder. These movements are so accessible. You can do them at the beginning of a workout to get your body ready so that it moves better. And what you'll find is when you start doing them, your body knows what to do. It's not something you have to take a lot of time to learn. The handstand was really important for my shoulder health because it was a goal that forced me to work on both the strength, mobility, and control of my shoulder in this overhead position, which was something that was really scary for me to do. So the main things that I got from my handstand were a ton of mobility drills that would allow me to get my shoulder overhead, and not just stretches, true mobility exercises that would get me to actively open my shoulder. And then not only that, would have to do it upside down with my whole body weight in my hands. That all really taught me a lot about shoulder mechanics that ultimately got me to feel really comfortable that I could put my arms overhead without fear of pain or dislocation. After I was able to do handstands regularly, I took on the bridge, because the handstand is more like you're turning your shoulders into your hips. They just need to become really stable and strong in an open position. But the bridge is one that just will really force you to open up everything. From years of not putting my hands overhead and doing tons of bench pressing and not really moving much, my spine was so stiff. And so taking on the bridge as a goal was that next step in me really learning how to open my body. To do a good bridge, you have to have really open lats, open pecs. You have to be able to extend your thoracic spine, even learn how to relax the muscles in your neck. These are all things that really anyone could benefit from. So if you deal with any sort of shoulder problems or stiffness, I'd highly recommend taking on the handstand and or the bridge as goals. So if you want to start your journey on either one of those, we have videos in the description box.
So we've pretty much made the hero's journey. You had something that sparked your journey, and you went through some hard times, some depressing times, some hopeless times, but you learned from it and you made it all the way out of it. And now you get to teach people what you learned from it.
I'm a hero.
You're a hero, you made it. And if you guys want to see some of the more impressive things that Trevor can do nowadays, where he shares a little bit of this shoulder injury story, then we'll pop that link in the description. So last thing is, where can people find you? How can people work with you?
We run the Primal Athlete. We start a new round every couple months. We have a lot of students come through, actually a lot interested in bridging and handstands. And so that's a lot of what we focus on. I also have a coaching business if you want to work with me personally. My Instagram handle is @TrevorHash, I think you would say. And then my website is trevorhash.com. Hit me up.
All right, guys, we drop videos every Friday. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and as always,